Hello and welcome back once again to After the Credits, where today we're talking about Spider-Man. So what did I think of Spider-Man? It was another Marvel movie. It fits into that whole realm of things that Marvel does. And overall it was a decent film, except my only downfall with it is I think they're starting to play Peter Parker too young at this point. I know he's supposed to be a high school student, and they did do that in the Sam Raimi version, and I believe he was in high school, if not early college, in the Andrew Garfield version. But in this version, they're playing him basically as a freshman in high school. At one point, Tony Stark says something about him only being 14 years old, and him saying, no, actually, I'm 15. So they're playing him excessively young in this film, and he just comes off more like a 12-year-old at times, like he's really overly immature and doesn't really handle situations the best that he actually could. And I know this is supposed to be the coming-of-age story of him, but it was established in Civil War that he's been Spider-Man for a while, and he's kind of established himself enough that Tony Stark took notice of him and invited him to be on his side in the battle. But then from this point going forward, it's almost like he didn't belong there in the first place. And honestly, after seeing this performance, I would have been more interested to see where they were going to go with the Andrew Garfield version versus this version. But this is what we got because Marvel wanted to bring Spider-Man back into their universe. So basically the whole movie follows Peter through high school and trying to be taken seriously by Tony Stark, but at the same time going about things really clumsily and not really communicating with people the way he should, but at the same time other people aren't communicating with him the way they should. So it's almost like they're treating him like a child, so in turn he acts like a child, where if both sides would just communicate with each other a little bit, things could probably work out a lot better. So the whole thing of the movie is Spider-Man's not sure if he's an Avenger or not, and he's trying to prove himself worthy to Tony Stark. And there's times where he's involved in stuff and Tony Stark says, if you get involved with this again, don't engage the people, put a tracer on them, whatever, and contact me or contact Happy, and we'll set things into motion to take care of it. And Peter kind of ignores that because he thinks they don't think he can handle it. So he's trying to show him that he can handle it. And that's kind of the way the movie keeps playing out, with him and Tony Stark going back and forth on whether he's worthy of being an Avenger or if he's just a child, or what is his stance in this whole thing. And eventually Tony realizes that maybe he is a little too immature to be given this much power and responsibility. So he takes the suit away from him, and Peter says, you can't take the suit away, I'm nothing without the suit. And Tony throws out the comment that you see in the trailer that if you're nothing without the suit, you don't deserve to have it in the first place, or you shouldn't have had it in the first place. So then Peter kind of has to go out on his own, back in his old suit, and again, prove himself that he is worthy of having the suit and he's not just the suit. And I'm not going to give you all the details about what happens, but by the end, he does earn Tony's respect, and Tony presents him with a new suit and a place on the Avengers, which, spoilers, he ends up turning down because he realizes that he might be jumping too far ahead of himself. He does mature a little bit. He says, maybe I should finish high school and be myself a little bit and just stick to the smaller, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man type of crimes before I worry too much about becoming an Avenger. And Tony's like, okay, well, if you change your mind, whatever. And during that course, I don't know if I mentioned it, but Tony presented him with a new suit, which would have been more similar to, I forget what they call it in the comic books now, but the Iron Spider suit, I think is what they call it, where it's like gold and red, except this one is basically the same suit, but it sticks with the black and red theme. So that suit is always there on standby, but since he turned down the spot in the Avengers, by the end, Tony gives him back the other suit so he can go back to being Spider-Man and still have the advantages of Tony Stark's technology versus just being in a pair of pajamas and a red hoodie. So overall, like I said, I like the movie. It plays out okay. It's just at times I feel that making him so young might have been the problem, and that even though you're still casting him as being in high school, he didn't have to be basically a freshman in high school. They could have still had him be like a junior or a senior or something going into his final year, which is what the other films have done with him, and then the next one would be him like going into college. But they're still developing him, still figuring out what they're doing with him, so having him be a little bit younger, I guess, is meant to kind of bring in a little bit younger demographic into the Marvel Universe, which you already have a young demographic as it is. I don't know exactly what you're aiming for there, but it is what it is. There's a lot of issues I have with some of the characters in the film, like Flash being introduced in this film, and originally Flash was on the high school football team. He was the quarterback, whatever. In this version, Flash is actually a scrawnier kid than Spider-Man, but yet is somehow, I guess, a senior or slightly more popular popular or whatever, but he's also on the same, like, math club and debate club and everything that Peter's on, but because Peter's smarter than him, he's always like an alternate, which is why he doesn't like Peter, because I guess he's older and should be smarter than Peter, but he's not, so that's his resentment. And then, like, even as potentially a senior, he still acts juvenile as well. Like, he constantly calls Peter Penis Parker. And it's like, okay, you're a senior in high school. I can understand those jokes among, like, a freshman class or even a younger class, but you're supposed to be a senior and you're still throwing out jokes like Penis Parker, and that's really the best you can come up with to make fun of Peter. And it even goes to the point where they're at a senior party at one point and Peter gets invited there by one of the other girls on the math club, whatever the hell it is. They're doing like a decathlon thing, so, you know, she's like captain of the team and Peter's like basically the smartest one on the team. So she invites Peter to the senior party, where when we get to the party, Flash is the DJ, and he gets to the point where he's like, when I say penis, you say Parker, penis, and everyone goes Parker. So all the seniors are getting in on the joke and making fun of Peter with this whole your name is penis thing. And it's like, really, most of those students would be looking at him like, really, you're still doing this joke? That's the best you can come up with? And he does it so many damn times throughout the movie, it's ridiculous. So that's just one of the characters I have an issue with. Another one being when we finally meet the MJ character, who, again, this is a spoiler, so if you don't want to know what this part is, skip ahead a little bit. But basically there's this girl who kind of follows Peter and his best buddy around from almost the start of the film. By the way, his buddy in this one isn't Harry Osborn for some reason, so I guess that's going to come into play later. But Peter's best friend and him are like sitting in the cafeteria talking, and this girl kind of sitting at the end of the table that they're at says something about how they're losers, and they're like, well, why do you sit at the same table with us? And she goes, because I don't have any friends. So then, like, she kind of comments on a few things that Peter does, and everyone kind of gives her this weird look. It's like, what? I'm not obsessed with him. I just happen to be in a lot of the same groups and classes that he's in. And then, like, another time she's in detention when Peter's in detention, and when Peter leaves detention, the teacher looks at her, and he says, why are you even here? You don't have detention today. And she says, I just like to come in here and sketch the misery of others. And she shows them a picture of himself, and then later you see another day in detention, she shows Peter like a picture that she sketched of him. So basically she's just kind of this outcast loner emo character that just kind of follows Peter around for some reason, but not really. She just kind of always happens to be where he's at. And then at the end, when the main senior girl leaves the school, like, okay, we need a new captain for the decathlon team, and I've selected, and this is the first time they mention her name at all throughout the movie, because I was trying to figure out who she was through the whole movie. I'm like, have they given her a name yet? So by the end they say, and I've selected her, and they give her a name which, I forget what it was, like Melody or Melissa or something like that. Something starting with an M. And she throws out, oh, my friends call me MJ. And, you know, of course, Peter's friend goes, I thought you said you didn't have any friends, haha. You know, that little joke type of thing. But it's like, okay, you're MJ, but your name is Melody or Melissa or whatever they called you. The thing is, Marvel should know MJ's name was Mary Jane Watson. But Mary Jane is not the same as Melody or Melissa. So you did nothing to establish this character as being MJ. The girl didn't even have red hair to hint that she might be MJ. And I forget the name of the actress that plays her, but she's a Hispanic actress, so of course she has naturally dark hair. But throwing out that this is supposed to be MJ when you gave no clue throughout anything in the movie that she was MJ just doesn't make sense, especially when you didn't say, oh, I've selected Mary Jane to be the new team captain, and her being like, oh, my friends call me MJ. That would have made more sense, but you give her this whole other name than what MJ is known to stand for, and it just doesn't really make sense, especially when you're making it a point to reintroduce all these characters into your Marvel extended movie universe versus whatever Sony was originally doing with their version. So I don't really understand where they're going with this whole Spider-Man thing. Honestly, if they wanted to bring Spider-Man into the Marvel world, why didn't they just pick up the Andrew Garfield thing and be like, look, we want to tie your Spider-Man universe into our universe, and we know you got this Sinister Six thing coming up, so, you know, we're going to do one more movie with Spider-Man before you get to the Sinister Six, and then that can kind of lead into your Venom film. And did it more like that and brought Andrew Garfield in as the Spider-Man. Would have fit more, but the whole point in them not wanting to do that was they wanted to do this younger version. And I just don't get quite where they're going with the younger version. So, overall, like like I said, it was a decent film. It's another Marvel film. If you like what Marvel's doing so far, you'll like this, but like I said, I don't get where they're going with the younger version, and I don't really like what they did with some of the characters in this version, but those are really my only downfalls with it. So, what would I give it as far as a star rating? On this one, I'd probably say a 3.5. Again, not that it was a bad film, but it's just another in the line of Marvel movies. It didn't really do anything to stand out. So I might have been able to give it, an above the middle of the road for that, but really it gets knocked down to the middle of the road just because I'm not quite sure where they're going with this. And it was pretty standard cookie cutter stuff from Marvel. So there you have it. That's my review of Spider-Man. As always, thank you guys for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, share the video. Links are down in the description. Click the bell up there in the corner. Make sure you're getting notifications every time I post new content. And until next time, we'll see you after the credits.